To welcome everybody. This is Mike Steinhauser. First off, did anybody had a chance to take a look at the meeting summary, or we want to update the meeting minutes? Is that correct?
Yep, approve the meeting minutes from last month.
Yep. Anybody have any discussion on that at all? Not, I'd take a motion to approve, please.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Let's move on to the anti-displacement work group, Cura team / Kathy Gold. So let's move on to that.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just wanted to provide a little bit of an update about the anti-displacement working group. And so these first couple of weeks, we've been meeting with CTRs to kind of organize around the onboarding and forwarding, materials and things that we've done in the past, and just really kind of figuring out how we're going to work together on this very important work. Thanks, Sophia. And then also, he has been out in the community. Hi, CTRs. There you are. Are you on mute?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I was just getting
That's
back
okay.
to not the kids. Sorry about that, y'all.
That's okay. Just getting started. Thanks for joining. So I was just saying that we've been connecting here in the initial weeks, just onboarding and getting you some information from our side of the court, and kind of just figuring out this thing that we're entering into. And so next up, we're talking about connecting with community and stakeholders. And you've been out in the community and talking with folks. Do you want to speak to a little bit of that?
Yeah. I've been, I think one of the things is, I'm trying to sit down and have coffee with as many people as possible right now, which there's some of you in this group that I've got to get back to and make that happen. But just generally getting out there in community, getting our ear to the ground, making sure that we sort of know, one, what people's sort of hopes are within this project of doing anti-displacement work. When we say displacement, what do we mean? Of course, we talk about sort of housing or sort of residents and businesses, but there's also cultural displacement and other aspects of displacement that I think people are really caring for, which I think really shapes up sort of our research agenda and the things that we want to talk about in the context of the group. But it's also just knowing, learning more about, the cultural assets that people are really thinking about in the community and sort of what they need to know to sort of protect those assets. And just generally, just knowing where people are at within this project and, where they are within alignment, where they are at in sort of just generally what's happening along the corridor. And so, yeah, just a lot of really good conversation, getting to know the community even deeper, and making sure that we're getting to all those really, really important points when we're doing this work. So there's a number of you. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say laying the base work, right? Just trying to get some information from folks and just getting a group of people together that can kind of tell their stories. And so next, going into developing the proposal for forming the anti-displacement table. You want to talk a little bit about the application and what we're thinking on that?
Yeah, so the hope is to get open the application for it next week. So that should be out, and then hopefully get a number of applications through the end of this month and early into the next month, with the first meeting kicking off next month. So the application is really just getting a sense of, what do folks know about displacement? What is their sort of relational positionality to this project? Because we want to get a good mixture of interests, right? Business interests, resident interests, people who have been displaced, folks who are really connected and have constituencies on the corridor, who are doing organizing work along the corridor, just making sure it's broadly representative. So the application is really just getting to know the different people who want to be on the table, who want to be at the table and making sure that we're, you know, getting full representation in that context. So look for that next week. We'll put out a lot of communication around that, hopefully working with the cohorts as well to get the word out, and we'll be pounding the pavement to get folks on that. So the hope is to get around 15 to 20 people in that for the group, and so that's the hope. We'll also be doing ongoing recruitment depending on, you know, what that group, what you get early on.
And so we're looking for that to be out next week, and then looking to kind of get in those applications within a 2-week period time frame so that we can get going with that process. Cool. And then next, could we talk a little bit about the research and engagement piece?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, I think there's a lot of hopes within, you know, community for us to get a high number of touch points with the community, or a high number of data points, in other words, folks that we talk to in community, so that we're fully hearing from folks. But we're beginning the research process. There's some things that we know we have to do that just takes, you know, getting the folks and the staff and resources put forth into doing that. So stuff like doing like the demographic analysis, beginning to look at, you know, sort of, you know, data that already exists or research that already exists around displacement, research already around the blue line and existing green lines, you know, stuff like that. So we've begun that work, but as well, that we know those first couple of meetings in the first, and this is the question that I think I put to y'all the first time, is really filling out that research agenda. I know a couple of you have sent me emails, so we're logging all those different things to make sure that our research agenda fully fits the knowledge need or the interest need of community, so that y'all sort of feel fully informed about what this work can be, and what it's sort of the outcomes can be as well. So we're still queuing that stuff up. So if there still are questions that y'all are really interested in asking, and those are sort of things, it's the right time to email me, and be getting a lot of that. So so we're just downloading all that and queuing stuff up for sure.
So Sophia, if anybody has any questions for CTRs or I, we're open to that, or we can move on to the next agenda item.
Yeah, open it up to the committee and the chairs, co-chairs. I think Felicia already has her hand up.
Great.
Thanks. Thank you for that. And good seeing you, C. Terrence. I'm wondering, I'm hearing you say that you're needing us to help kind of fill in or fill out that research agenda. I'm wondering if I missed something. Was there like an email like solicitation for folks, or was that something that was asked at the last meeting to shoot you some questions?
Yeah, I think I asked it at the last meeting, but I think it's the right thing to do to send it out in a formal email. So thanks for that. The heads up on doing that too. So I'll make sure I do that. Yeah, we're not too early in doing that or anything.
Thank you.
Okay, not seeing much more discussion. Chairs, are we wanting to move on to kick it off over to Nick?
Does anybody have anything else? I mean, this is a really important topic, and I want to make sure everybody understands it. And if you have some uncertainties, please speak up, because if you have them, somebody else has them. Okay, well then if that's the case, let's turn it over to Nick then with his Minneapolis design update.
And before Nick gets started, I think we can make a commitment to kind of email out to this group kind of the pieces that we're talking about for follow-up, so folks are tracking.
Okay.
Or have time to comment as well.
Yeah, this is an important piece, but if everybody understands it, great.
Okay.
Sometimes it takes folks maybe a couple minutes to process it too. But what I do want to encourage folks is that if you haven't already, to go ahead and just do a one-to-one with C. Terrence or somebody from the anti-displacement work group. I find that those more one-to-one conversations are easier to pull out some of those like nuances for your particular area, to be able to even more clearly articulate that, or find out a little bit more about this team and how they do their work. I think that'll be good for all of us. Since this is an ongoing thing, we're going to be working with them for a little bit. So I do strongly encourage people to at least like have that touch point and touch base in that way if you have time. Gives you time to process all of this and then, get it to be a bit more digestible sometimes, because I'm always thinking about how I have to relay all this stuff back to other people. And so it's helpful to have those follow-up conversations.
Sounds like it's to you, Nick.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you. And as we start rolling through here again, I'm going to reiterate what Sophia brought up at the beginning. I know she sent out an email with the PowerPoint, so you have that information, but also a link to our Blue Line, our project website, bluelineext.org. And this information is there on the website. It's in the public coordinate map, which is a very good a place to go in, bring up all these alignments and have a chance to take a look at it, review it, look at comments other folks have left, leave your comments and take a look at opportunities. So I think there's a lot of different avenues here. Another thing, and I know Felicia will attest to it also, there's a lot of information that we have. So we're just going to be hitting the tip of the iceberg here. And it's really, the intent today is to help folks that are on this meeting to know where to go and find this information, and also to encourage you to, if you're able to come and attend some of our workshops here in the next couple of weeks and attend the, either the in-person or virtual workshops. And this is probably going to take quite a few bites out of the apple to fully absorb everything that's going to go forward. So that's my encouragement. I'm going to stop a few times as we go through here to ask for any discussion, but also please raise your hand as we're going through it, and we can stop and have a conversation as we're going through it. And again, I'm going to be very high level here with what I'm rolling out, and it's more just to get you pointed in the right direction to find the information that's going to be rolling out at the workshops here this month. So. Really, the information you're going to see is really basic design. It's basic design at sub 5% level, maybe about a 2% level, and it's really to see what our challenges are and what our opportunities are along either a West Broadway Washington or a West Broadway route or a Lowry Washington route. So just to see how things fit within context and what the different opportunities are. We're going to roll this out. We'll have a lot of roll plots at our in-person workshops, and more of the virtual ones will be more like this to show folks where to go to find the information, because there is that volume. But and also have the discussions for folks that have been able to pull up and look at them. Feedback from these workshops and our community conversations, they're going to help us to inform the draft report that we're going to bring out in December, and that draft report will include data, information, comments that we're pulling together from this research, and then that will feed into our final report, and that final report will have a recommendation of a route to move forward with, and that we anticipate in the March 2022 timeframe. So as we're pulling together the information, we're trying to put it in an organized fashion to help folks focus on the areas that they're interested in, but also to be able to find that information. So we're focusing again on the Minneapolis routes, so West Broadway route or the Washington Lowry route, as shown on this map. And what we've tried to do is put these into sections on each route. And then we'll have alternatives in each one of these sections to see how things will fit. So sections 1 through 4 include West Broadway. So 1 is from Target Field Station, following that link out of downtown area to Lyndale Avenue. So it takes us up to about a Plymouth and Lyndale intersection. Section 2 is Lyndale Avenue from Plymouth up to West Broadway. Section 3 incorporates West Broadway from Lindale over to approximately Irving. And in there you can also see that we have some of the different alternatives we're looking at. West Broadway and 21st are in that section. And then section 4 is from Irving up to the intersection of West Broadway and Lowry in that location. Now, sections 5 through 7 are the Lowry Washington routes. So 5 takes us again from Target Field Station roughly up to that Plymouth Avenue area on Washington. Section 6 is Washington, primarily Washington Avenue from Plymouth up to Lowry. And then section 7 is a very long section, is Lowry from basically Washington Avenue over to the West Broadway Lowry intersection. So that's how we've organized it, so you can go in and find this information a little bit better. So next slide, please. Some of the highlights that we'll have in these sections we've simplified the links here. So if everybody remembers earlier on, I think it was even in March, we rolled out the links out of the downtown area, which is shown in the yellow box here. We had kind of the rainbow spaghetti, as we referred to it, with a lot of different options. As we've worked with the project partners, we've dove into these links and how they would fit and connect. We've kind of narrowed those down. We've taken out some of the link options that were challenging or beyond challenging, probably not feasible, of either how we were getting off in Target Field Station, or as we were trying to find a route that navigated through the community. We were finding areas that were, very high impact, or the alignments just would not fit very well. We also have route options along 21st Avenue for the West Broadway. So that's kind of a what I'll call an operational opportunities that we can look at and review as we're going through that section 3 area. And then up at West Broad, or up at North Memorial area, we'll have some options there for how we get the light rail either off of West Broadway or from Lowry onto County Road 81. Diving even farther down into this map here, and this is really going to be a key to find those alternatives in each one of these sections. So what we're seeing here is each section has multiple alternatives. We wanted to give some options so folks could see what, again, the challenges were and the opportunities. So there's going to be alternatives in there that are very impactful. They seem like they were probably the most intuitive at first as you roll them out, but we see that there was a lot of impacts involved with those. So then we've looked at some alternate options in each one of these areas or alternatives in each one of these areas that try to mitigate and try to limit the impacts that one option may have to the community. Again, each one of these alternatives are going to show different challenges and opportunities. And the thing with these alternatives, they're just to help inform folks to digest and form an opinion on which route would be the best option.
Good morning.
I was wondering if there's a question out there. Just a little background noise. So each one of these alternatives are just we don't need to decide on these now. They're just more informative of how things will work within that route, and they can be carried forward after a route has been selected and into the design phase. So we don't need to spend a lot of time worrying about which alternative needs to move forward. It's more a basis to help inform of how a route would work and what the alternatives would be in that route. So I guess in the yellow boxes there are the different alternatives that you'll see. So in some locations, for instance, that section 3 of West Broadway, there's quite a few alternatives in there to help us get through there and show some of the options and opportunities that we'd have in that West Broadway area to have an alignment go through there. The same with I think it's probably maybe a little bit more as we'll look at section 7 also, and we have a couple options up there that are more of geometrical options to how we can fit through allow reroute, how light rail works, and what are some alternatives to mitigate for impacts that may be shown. Next slide, please. So again, I'll stop and take a break there if there's any questions of how we're laying it out. So kind of a lot of work, but just how we're rolling out. So when we'll go to the in-person workshops here, we're going to have 7 different stations for each one of these sections that are going to lay out side by side what all these alternatives are. So it'll be really easy to see, okay, I'm in section 7. What does section 7A, section 7B, what are the differences? What are the alternatives? How does it work? So to inform that, inform the public, the community, our partners on how things fit in.
Quick question.
Yes.
The alternatives, is there going to be a time set that these routes going to be chosen so that the confusion of whether the alternative going to be used or not? First question. And the second question is, could you talk a little about 63rd Avenue?
63rd, the station up there, is that the
Yeah.
question also? Okay. Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. We are focusing on Minneapolis section here in the rollout, but yeah, I could take a question on that. So alternatives, let's take that one first. As we're rolling forward, we move forward with a recommendation for route selection in that March timeframe, and that goes through the advisory committees and our process there. We can pull those forward into design. So it's when we get into design work, our initial environmental work, I guess, post-March timeframe will be when we really take a stab at what those impacts are and what the mitigations are, and what our design challenges are. And that's when we'll start narrowing down which alternatives to move forward with. And we'll continue to use this format with our advisory committees and our community outreach to help bring that process along.
I say the 63rd Avenue station's been quite a long time since we brought that to the committee. But it is also, the layout for that station is online, related to the last Brooklyn Park open house. So that's we can bring that back too, but just want folks to know that that's there. And Nick, take it away.
Yeah. So was there a specific question on 63rd?
So the reason I asked is that I saw the printed material and 63rd was not on the last printed materials. That's what I'm asking. Sorry that I'm taking you backwards.
Oh, no worries. So I wasn't sure I got that whole comment, Jackson.
But that's okay. I'll check it out.
Okay. Yeah, we're always happy to and available for more discussion or answer questions to outside of the presentation if necessary. Okay, so the map we're looking at here, this is from you can find this at our project website, bluelineextension.org. Again, this is an interactive map, so you can go into each one of along the alignment, and you can see the sections numbered there 1 through 7 in the blue dots. You can click on those blue dots and it will have all the information with the alternatives in there. So you can click on, scroll through it, look at it. Also, on the project website, again, you can go into and download just the PDFs. So you can zoom in, scroll through, get more detail on that. So that information is out there. And the good thing about the public coordinate map here is you can go in there and comment directly on any of the design options, or you can place your own icons and note your own challenges, issues, opportunities, and comments on there. So that's very helpful. And then again, for folks that maybe haven't been on this website, hopefully most people have. It's a great the public coordinate is a great tool, but the camera pictures also show some of the visualizations that we've shared previously in our meetings. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. So, so last one. So again, the whole purpose here is we're trying to seek community feedback. This information being shown to help folks decide whether a West Broadway or a Lowry route should advance through there. So this is kind of that open process to get that input. We're showing multiple options in each section on both routes, so folks can kind of get the idea of what the opportunities are and how we can adjust things and avoid things and move things around with alternatives. All of this stuff will be detailed and refined as we get into design and we start doing our environmental and engineering work, and we'll be working on this over the next few years after a route is selected. I think another thing to note as we start looking into these concepts is these are concepts. They're just help to picture how things will fit in. Again, they're based on a very minimal amount of design. They don't show a lot of they don't show things like greening, a lot of the ped bike connections that will be very important. And those are all things that we'll address as we get in design and dive into. Really now they're just more of a higher level to see how that footprint fits within a route. So the project team, as we move forward, we do this community feedback at the end of November. Our team will start to develop that draft report, which again will show all our homework, all the data that's going into the work we're doing here. And that draft report will be released out to the public, and there'll be a 45-day comment period for folks to weigh in on comment on it. And then after that, we get the comments back. We're able to digest them, discuss them. Then we will pull together that final report, and that final report will be in the March timeframe is what we envision. And that will also have a 30-day comment period for folks to look at the report and weigh in on it. So let's roll up our sleeves here a little bit. Again, in the respect for time out here, we're just going to look at a couple of the options, a couple of the segments, and walk through the plans and what you're going to see on the plans and kind of how to navigate those a little bit. So let's look at this is the key map, and these are things that you're going to that are shown on the drawings. Again, these are very high level, but as you can see in this key map, there's a lot of detail in it. We're going to show, track in blue, the stations will be in the yellow, roadway and median kind of pavement areas are shown in gray, bridges are orange. You'll see strips of, if we believe there's a retaining wall, obviously we haven't at this point identified where all retaining walls will go, but if we think there would be a retaining wall, we're working with someone having to replace it. It's in red. Sidewalks will be key. Those show up in that white on the outside, so you can see some of the sidewalk connections and how that fits in. One of the things that we really people are going to want to weigh in on here is building impacts. So we're not showing specific right-of-way impacts, if it's a strip taking or a strip that we're going to need for a temporary or permanent easement to put in a sidewalk. We're not showing that to that detail because there's a lot of work that's going to need to go in to determine that. But as we're going out there, if we think that there's a potential for building impacts, we're showing that building impact in pink. And as we move forward in the design, that really the goal is to help mitigate and minimize those pink building impacts, but we want to show those in there. So that'll be there. Pavement markings such as directional lane use, whether it's a through arrow or right or left turn lanes are on there on the roadways, so you can see how those intersections operate. Signalized intersections will have that red, yellow, green balls on the in the intersection to show that it is signalized. And then that kind of zebra stripe bar that you'll see there would be if there would be a driveway or an alleyway where an access closure would be needed. And then obviously transit stations are going to be key to get through here. So really high level key things that you're going to see on all these drawings as we move forward. So let's go to the next slide.
Oh,
go ahead.
Before you move on, Felicia had in chat just basically where all the places that we're gathering community feedback. And it kind of like where could, I think that's where encourage people to comment is the thing. So obviously we already talked about the interactive map. There's a survey within the interactive map, but also lets folks leave longer form comments if they want to, basically on the various routes and the sections. We're focused on Minneapolis right now, but folks can also comment on County Road 81 segment of the map. And then it's at these workshops, kind of for the virtual, it's kind of what some of the conversation that we have in chat. We'll have comment cards for folks. And then if none of those formats are working, folks can also just email their feedback to project staff, and we will compile that through the month. I also would really like to say, kind of to that one-on-one plug, that that you put it for meeting with Steve Terrence. Project staff would really like to connect with folks kind of one-on-one, especially if they have, if they're stakeholders on a certain route, to get more into details. And we also will kind of track and compile the feedback from those discussions. So really trying to encourage people to comment virtually on the interactive map, or to come to some of our workshops in person. I think it really helps to see things in person to the extent possible. And then there's some more suggestions too about a video for how to use the interactive map. I think Trevor is online. We could look into doing that, something, you know, kind of quick and easy. You know, just kind of staff narrating something really quick.
That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I've taken everything from that chat. Okay, yeah, it just kind of that all the features of the interactive map, kind of explaining that a little bit more. Okay, please say anything else that covers it. Cool. Okay, back to you, Nick.
Okay, so let's jump to the next slide, please. So I want to just kind of highlight section 7 here, and take a look at that. And so in what we're going to look at here is going to be in that dashed blue box there along section 7, where we have a couple alternatives, 7A and 7AB. You know, we're trying to really be organized here and make it clear, but even some of those that nomenclature may get a little confusing. But what we want to do is take a look at what the design challenges are here along this alignment, and like Lowry Avenue, some of the things to look at. There's a lot of unsignalized intersections. So if we're crossing the track, if the track is going down the roadway and there is a crossing, it needs to be signalized. So those signalized intersections add impacts. You know, we need to have, we discussed before that if there's a signalized a track crossing and we have a signal there, we need left turn lanes. Those left turn lanes start growing the footprint. And some of the other things to look at is, you know, this mostly residential land along there, and then residential impacts along Lowry. Not all, but there is quite a bit more residential along here, specifically single family residential. And so there's potential for more building impacts as we look at these that aren't shown if we add pedestrian crossings. So we know that in these plans we're showing where the signalized traffic crossings are on there. We've highlighted that, but we know as we go into design, we need to provide adequate pedestrian crossings in, so it's convenient. So, you know, folks don't have to walk 6 blocks to get to a crossing, that it's only maybe a couple blocks to get across those tracks and in a safe manner. And when we do that, we try to make it so we have boxes that have people transition as they're crossing into the tracks, so they're facing directions of trains. Well, that starts adding space also. So, you know, there's a potential when pedestrian crossings are there could be additional impacts. The options in this section are more focused on geometrics. So geometrics meaning how we move things around within that roadway, and how we mitigate for impacts that way. So this map is a very good example of why just all the information we have out there can get overwhelming, as we have a in-person meeting. This map will be at a larger scale so you can read it very clearly. And to represent it, this is probably at least 8 feet long on a table, so people can go through it. So as you pull up the PDF and you're having to zoom in to look at what the details and how each intersection works and where things fit in there, there is quite a bit to go along the segment. So what we're gonna broke this down into a couple sections so we can look at the detail and more zoom it in and look at more detail. And really what we're gonna look at here is a couple examples or alternatives between James and Lindale Avenue, and so folks can see how it fits in there. So what we're looking at this map, this is a section of 7AA, and what we're highlighting here is you know, one of the things we look at is station placement along the alignment. And really with the D line LRT coming through Emerson Fremont is really an obvious place to get those transit connections through this area. So we looked at how to fit a station within the context or within this area. And as you fit the stations in, the tracks have to widen out to go around the station. So there are impacts from how that lays out in there, and with the left turn lanes in, there's a lot of different things going on. So you can see in this that in shown in pink, there's a lot of properties that are impacted here with this design. And you know, again, those pink properties are building impacts where, and we're really not showing if it's at this time, if it's 1 foot or 15 feet into the building. It just knows that there's a concern that there could be an impact to that building on those properties. Some other things that you're going to see key on this map, again, the blue is the light rail going down the roadway. This is at grade again. The yellow is that station location on the left side of Fremont, and how that would fit in there and how you would access that station platform. The green boxes that are outlined around properties, those indicate publicly owned properties, whether it's the city or the county or other public agency or entity owns those. So we've just kind of highlighted that to put that in context. So what we can see here is a comparison then to a view of section 7AB, which is a different alternative. An example, this is between Knox Avenue and 3rd Street. So a little bit wider span, but it shows a different station location. So we're widening it out here so we can see, all right, the station had some impacts as we put it at Fremont and Emerson. You know, if we slide the station down, maybe closer to Lindale Avenue, what are the opportunities are there? And can we go back to that last slide, please? So here you can see that by not having a station placed at Emerson Fremont, it really does limit the impacts to the properties around it. You can see a lot of the pink that was shown there. Those building impacts are not in this alternative alignment. And so then let's go to the next image, please. This shows the station now located at Lindale. And you know, one of the key things here is there's a lot of public right-of-way at Lindale Station. It's a lot wider there. There's some kind of open green space in this area. And so by putting a station in this location, maybe we don't have that direct Emerson. It's a little bit farther over to the Emerson Fremont D-line stations, but the station would fit in there with less impacts to properties. Some other things you can see here on this map is on the right-hand side of the screen is a bridge that would come from Washington Avenue over and connect into Lowry. So that would be a bridge structure that's shown in that kind of orangish color. So just went through quite a bit of information really quickly. You can see how these alternatives lay out to give folks an idea of how moving things around can change how the impacts are along the potential impacts are along the alignment. Any questions here?
Just gonna have to wait till I get there to look at this because it's
Yeah.
small on my phone.
I could imagine that. And that's the struggle. It's such a vast area, and there's so much, even on a pretty good sized computer monitor, some of this stuff is really hard to see in a presentation, and you really need to be able to either pull it up and zoom in to look at the areas that you're interested in, or come to an open house where it's laid out in a lot larger scale.
And this is exactly to the detail that it really helps us to get with folks and kind of talk through, because you have the balance of placing, for example, a station close to transit connections like the D line, so like really maximizing that like metro network, whereas sliding down a station still potentially serves a whole bunch of folks but minimizes property impacts. And those are pieces I think the community can really help us weigh and work through and comment on. So we're really hoping to kind of get some of the very specific feedback about these options, and kind of like Nick said, we can bring multiple of these once we select overall route, we can bring multiple of these options within these sections forward to evaluate further and discuss further with the community. But it's a lot of detail, and you to that point, it's really good to kind of zoom in on it and get into that level of detail.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of bites at the apple. I think Felicia can attest to that. Seeing it in person, seeing it in these presentations, diving in on your own. There's just so much to take in. It's going to take more than one bite at the apple to fully comprehend. So with that, let's move into section 3. This is again that section 3 along West Broadway alignment, and the area we're focusing in on is from Lyndale Avenue to Irving, and this one really has a lot of different options there, and there's a reason for that because of just the tight space that we're in. We have many different concepts out there. I think some of the most straightforward concepts where we keep everything on West Broadway do have more impacts to properties, to specifically buildings, and so that's why we have quite a few more options. Some of the design challenges here are just as you can see on the map, the curves and humps that are along that alignment. It's not straight or linear. It's kind of moves all over the place. Being able to accommodate necessary turn lanes again where we have intersections, and the tight overall right of way in there with building faces right up to the right of way really make this area a little bit more challenging. Whereas Lowry, there's in a lot of places maybe a little bit more setback from the right of way. Here, some of these buildings the building faces fronts are right on the right of way line, right on the property lines. So our alternatives here focus on not only the roadway geometry, how we can move around within that road and right of way, but also on some operational adjustments to think maybe a little bit more outside the box of how we can either pair roadways or separate light rail from a roadway or some other options. So we'll take a look at those. We're only going to look at a couple of these alternatives here, just because in the respect for time that we have. So next slide, please. So with this area, we've included a couple of schematic or kind of line drawings here to help folks to kind of understand a little bit better of how things can operate and can operate. So I think folks have maybe seen some of these boards out there, but this is an existing condition out here, and we'll talk a little bit more about why we're showing 21st Avenue here as we go into the design slides. But West Broadway here on these line drawings shows that it's from Lyndale to West Broadway. There's 2 lanes of 2 directions of traffic on those roadways, and the same for 21st up there. It operates as bidirectional in each way. So there's some existing graphics on the bottom there that help folks to visualize what it looks like today. I think folks have seen specifically the West Broadway existing example here before in previous presentations. So next slide, please. So this is kind of looking at a section 3AB, and this is from Lindale to Irving, and this is looking at what it would be if we keep the traffic, at least a lane of traffic in each direction on West Broadway, and we put light rail in along West Broadway too. So we come from Lindale Avenue and go to West Broadway and keep traffic and light rail within West Broadway footprint. And there's a graphic again that we've seen before in presentations with the center running light rail, that lane of traffic on either side with sidewalks on the outside, and how that fits in there. And you know, in the middle of the blocks, in many cases, it fits very well. It's really as we get to the intersections that it proved to be challenging, and with station locations. So next slide. And so this kind of shows with that alignment, with the more detailed plan drawings, how things could fit within there. We show the station right around that DuPont area between Emerson and Bryant. And with the geometry, with turn lanes and stuff, the pink again shows what the potential impacts could be with this alternative. So you can see there are quite a few pink buildings along that alignment, and that has to do with both the track geometry through here and left turn lanes through as we go through those signalized intersections. Again, the green and that shows some of the publicly owned properties around there on that last map. Any questions on this as we're looking at it? I mean, I don't want to race through it. This is probably the first time folks are seeing this. I know, again, a lot of these pink properties folks are could be surprising to them. So, but again, this is just an alternative, an option, and what that option alternative, what those impacts would be as we get in design on any of these alignment options. We will work very hard to mitigate those impacts and try to avoid those impacts that are shown in pink. All right, well, let's take a look at another alternative here. So from the pink that was showing there, you know, that's where we want to, you know, keep with our project principles and try to minimize the impacts to properties and to businesses and to residents and stuff. So what are some of the alternatives that we could do to limit that and avoid as best as possible? So I think what we came forward with is an option that starts bringing in 21st Avenue, and there's quite a few alternatives as you go on the website that have some different operational configurations. And this is where I was talking about that, you know, not just geometric but operational, where how the roadway could operate and how light rail could operate also. So this option maintaining. Can we go back to that last one, please? Yeah, this option shows maintaining a lane of traffic in each direction on West Broadway, and then and bringing light rail up to 21st Avenue, and that light rail would come up from Lindale, connect to 21st Avenue, be both directions there. There would be a station up there likely in some place, and then go behind the Minneapolis Public School building, and then tie back in at Irving. So now let's pop into the map. So this map shows what that stick configuration has. So traffic remains on West Broadway in this scenario, or in this alternative. Again, the pink shows what potential building impacts could be with this alignment. The blue is the light rail going up to Irving, or excuse me, up to 21st from Lindale. A station located roughly centered on DuPont between Emerson and Bryant, and how that station would lay out, how the 21st in this condition would be, you know, not the through lane road that it was before, but there's connections between the streets that folks, it doesn't cut off alleyways or road connections. They can operate to 21st there. There's some additional signalized intersections shown on 21st to accommodate for light rail and light rail crossings that we have here. And then this shows the alignment again in a little bit more detail of how that would fit behind the Minneapolis Public School building, and then make that connection back to West Broadway in this area. Any questions or comments on this alternative and how we got there?
I would just remind P2, like that we pulled out just a couple options for how light rail could work in the section. There's 6 in total, and we just went through 2 of them. So we can pull other things up if people have specific questions about various layouts, but just wanted to get, kind of through that process, right, of trying to provide alternatives that accomplish goals and minimize impacts, and takes a little bit maybe to kind of review, but then really just want specific comments on the layouts themselves, and it can kind of be an ongoing conversation, but at least informing first step that process of how we could potentially move forward with a route. Yeah. And there's a question in chat from Jackson, and it's, is the rail going to pass through those buildings? Meaning, are those buildings going to be removed? So anything that is the pink means that there is a specific building impact.
Yeah. So I'm gonna, where I said earlier on, I'm gonna reiterate a couple times here. These are alternatives, and this shows what potential impacts would be from that alternative if we move forward with it. So
I have a question.
And as yeah, so go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were breaking.
Okay. So, yeah, go ahead.
So I'm curious if they're in the deck, if the deck that was sent out yesterday matches what we're reviewing today, or if you actually have to go on the site to see the additional options for specifically 21st. And then I guess I'm curious if we can maybe take a peek at the other options for 21st if there's time.
Yes, so the PowerPoint matches this, but we can pull out all the layouts for this section if folks want to. Just give me a second and I can pull it up. So let me stop sharing and we'll just get to the other materials. So 1 second.
So where I was going with this is these are alternatives as we get into design. Really our goal is to try to mitigate or minimize any impacts that are showing in the pink. Obviously, if we're going right through the middle of the building and you can't really avoid it, that's tough. But some of these building impacts may only be a foot or two, and can we do some geometric adjustments to avoid those? Those are things that we haven't rolled up our sleeves in that much detail in any one of these alternatives. It's more of, let's fit a section through here that we know meets the city's transportation policies, the county's policies for roadway and for light rail out there. So it's kind of the initial stab. But as we get further in design, we'll do what we can to minimize these impacts that are shown as a route is chosen, and as we start looking at the best alternatives within that route. Any other questions while Sophia's trying to bring that up? We have had challenges trying to share live on these, so that's why we have it in a PowerPoint right now to get through these as we start bringing up some of the websites we're finding. It might not even be the size, it might just be compatibility. Sometimes it's crashing us out. So
yeah, so just like that, my PDFs are being too slow, so I am actually just going to share public coordinate because public coordinate tends to not have issues when sharing electronic files. So it might be we'll be able to zoom in a little bit to it. So when you're on, I'm muted. When you're on public coordinate, if you click on the section number, it'll open up and you'll get this kind of list of all the options. And then you can expand it and zoom in. So Nick, I can just click forward and we can go through the various options. Maybe the first one on the screen for folks is just if you literally put the train down the middle of the roadway, and was kind of the starting point for how we developed the rest of the options.
Yeah, you can see that this is kind of the baseline where, like we said, we put everything down West Broadway through this area, and there's a lot of pink, a lot of impact shown. So that again is the basis of why we are moving forward with multiple alternatives through here, so we can minimize those impacts.
So kind of moving from this option is how we got to the 3AB that we just showed in the PowerPoint. So basically trying with the geometry of the track to just minimize the pink while keeping everything in the roadway itself. And then noticing that we were still hitting some community cultural assets, started to explore basically the options that utilize 21st in various ways. And so these are ones that we didn't go through, so I'll turn it over to Nick to kind of talk about them.
Yeah, this is 3AB where we start splitting operationally the traffic that's on West Broadway. So light rail would go down West Broadway both directions, but one direction of travel of vehicle traffic would be going eastbound on West Broadway, but the other direction, this is kind of a one-way pair like Lake Street is in some locations where the westbound lanes would be moved over to 21st on this option. So that's what's showing there. It's again, at this detail, you can zoom in as you go, pull these up and bring up the PDFs and really look at how it works operationally, but it's splitting the traffic operations and keeping the light rail on West Broadway on this alternative. And then this is kind of what we would call a flap or another portion of that alternative. So the last slide you saw as we were coming from Girard, it diagonaled through the block to that Irving Avenue to connect in. This one's kind of squaring it up using the existing roadway network and taking 21st over to Irving and teeing up that intersection. So it's you know a little bit more using that existing roadway network here with this option. And then this is an option where we look at splitting the light rail and along this area. So we maintain 2 lanes of traffic or 2 directions of traffic on West Broadway, and then we split the light rail between West Broadway and that 21st area, and 21st would be able to, I believe in this one, keep one direction of travel on it. So it would be one way. Pluses with the impacts to properties, but that last one you can see we split the stations by a block, so it gets a little bit tougher for the station folks to make sure they're at the right platform for the right direction of train. And then yeah, I think this is kind of an option or an alternative that we looked at before with taking light rail up to 21st and maintaining the traffic on West Broadway.
I think that's all of them in that series. We get back to the beginning, but just to kind of, you know, the pink sometimes looks really big in some places, and kind of like what Nick said, these designs are super preliminary. So, you know, in an option like this, you know, there's ones that, you know, obviously kind of go through a building. And then there is maybe more minor impacts that maybe through design refinement, you'd be able to minimize those impacts. Sometimes we show a whole parcel in pink when it might just be a portion of something that is impacted, and it would kind of be worked out. So, you know, part of what the staff is trying to do is trying to show at this stage the level of design and knowledge that we have, kind of like that maximum impact versus, you know, saying, oh, we might be able to figure it out. Don't worry about it. But also knowing that there can be design refinement in the future should one of these be a preferred method.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, sorry, one clarifying question, Nick. On 21st, on the last 3DA, would there be any driving traffic, or would just be just the light rail in this?
The one we're looking at, the 3DA, right now, it would be primarily light rail on 21st. No, it's hard to see at this level or scale, but there are some connections, for instance, like from there's alleys that connect in there. So we would have, you know, a small kind of alleyway that would connect up the alley between Bryant and Aldrich. So there are some connections there, but not through vehicle traffic in this option.
And Felicia mentioned in chat that it's difficult to read the text in the interactive map. And could we put it maybe in the description down here? We can look into doing that.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I think even as you guys start to vet out what level of impact it is, I know that Sophia, you mentioned that it's currently outlined fully. I think maybe a color rating system as you get closer and a hue of the same pink of like a, I don't know, low impact versus high impact, or as those further details become available, it might be helpful to show the distinction between levels of impact as opposed to.
Yeah, that's a really good comment. Yep. And in a sense, we almost tried to do that exercise at first. Like kind of medium, we kind of categorize things into medium, low, and high. Impacts low being like maybe it's just like a couple inches. We might be able to work around it. It's probably a property that if a route was taken, easily avoided. And then there's that medium impact where it could kind of go either way. And then there's high impact where basically that route going forward. So we're able to kind of, at this point, kind of answer a little bit of that if there's specific properties. It started to get really complicated on these maps in showing them, because we also kind of want to communicate that there's need for design refinement. So, you know, for example, we haven't gotten to the level of showing where you might need a construction easement. Like we wouldn't necessarily take down a building for a construction easement. But that kind of just like strip taking stuff isn't as highlighted. So that's kind of a lot of the next step too, is as we kind of figure out what we want to zoom into, getting to that much more granular level of detail to really have that conversation is where we can go.
Yep.
But Chris, if there's specific buildings that you're wondering about, we can help answer that, and kind of to that discussion, but then also a lot more work to do.
This is great. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I maybe bring back up the PowerPoint, but again, we can pull up any of the West Broadway or Lowry options that folks have questions about as we're going through this all. Any other comments, questions, general thoughts, feedback for staff from the committee?
Again, we encourage anybody that can, if you're interested, or come to the open houses, the in-person ones. I think will be really helpful to have, you know, more one-on-one discussions and be able to point at things and see everything laid out in detail and together. So.
Okay, chairs, it says let me know what you think. I think we could probably move on to the next agenda item if they feel the committee is ready, or want to prompt more for more discussion, or whatever you feel is we should go at this time.
Yeah, we're going to have better communication when we can see these things in, you know, 8-foot or 10-foot layouts, which will benefit me for sure quite a bit. With that, anybody else have anything with Nick, Sophia? So otherwise, we can jump on to the evaluation criteria by Sam O'Connell.
Good morning, everybody. Sophia or Nick, could you just give me a hands up and let me know if you can hear me today? I think I'm having some issues.
We can hear you. I saw that you tried to turn on your video and that was not working, but we can hear you clearly.
Perfect. Okay, so good morning, everybody. This is a really great day that we have here, that we're able to have the team share some of the alignment alternatives and some of the conversations. So as you can imagine, this has been a lot of work for the team working internally and externally as well. And I just also want to just give a shout out to a couple of our community members, Felicia in particular, to help us really think through how we present this information and how it's shared, and actually really, quite frankly, the whole experience of the workshop. So thank you for your input. As you can imagine, we have a lot of information that we're trying to go through, a lot to digest. This is really a culmination of almost 18 months of work that we're doing. So we just wanted to share with you in terms of where we are with the evaluation framework. For just to bring us back to where we were, we had developed the route principles at the end of last year, roughly about a year ago at this point, and also the engagement principles. So really the framework that allows us to think about when we think of our alignment options, what is going to support our community, what is going to serve our community, really bringing that as the framework for moving forward. So we also then operated in the framework within the project goals to help us improve access to transit and the connections that it allows us to have with jobs and regional destinations, clearly understanding that frequency and reliability is a key element of transit service, whether we're talking about a new service or existing. That's pretty important. That shows up very highly on all of our customer surveys and our feedback that we receive, and we clearly want to use that as a base moving forward. Obviously, we want to maximize the benefits of this project as we think about it moving forward. And one of those ways is obviously, as C. Terrence shared about the anti-displacement work, and then also on the flip side of that is making sure we're supporting the community's goals in development. So those visions that communities and neighborhoods and our businesses have worked on tirelessly through the years, that this project supports that as well. And that we are supporting healthy communities. And probably number one, I think in a lot of our residents and businesses' mind is making sure that this work brings equity to the forefront, and that we're really reducing any of the disparities that we see in our region as part of this work, and really be a catalyst for change. So with that, the team is continuing to work exactly on what those evaluation criteria could look like. And what we wanted to do is really take in the feedback from some of our community members as they attend and participate virtually or in person with the workshops to help us frame up the criteria that's going to make the most sense, really based on the feedback from our community members and in the work that we're doing to engage folks. So if we can move to the next slide, I'll show a little bit about what that evaluation timeline looks like. So we will spend our next meeting in December bringing back that feedback from the workshops, that really intensive work, the community outreach, those one-on-one conversations that Sophia and her team and others are having, and help us kind of filter a little bit through the evaluation pieces to bring forward for your consideration in December, a walkthrough of the evaluations that we think are going to help community members get to saying, yeah, I think when we measure the success and maybe the challenges of either a Lowry, Washington or West Broadway route, that this really kind of captures those metrics that we're very interested in. That will also be part of the draft report that we will release in December. And again, the draft report and all of its information, including the evaluation criteria, will be out for public comment. So it's also another opportunity for community members and residents and businesses to say, yeah, we think this really hits it, or, you know, can you also consider this metric, for example, you know, as something to think about in the evaluation. And that will help inform the final report that comes out in Q1 of 2022. So we just wanted to touch on that, remind folks that we're still working on it. And also just let folks know that we'll spend a little bit more time in December on that information. Co-chairs, are there any questions regarding that?
I do not have, no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will kick it back to the co-chairs and Sophia. Thank you.
Sounds good, Sam. Co-chairs, just want to let the space be open for a second for any other thoughts or comments or questions from the committee, and then we can kind of talk about the next meeting slash next steps.
Okay. I have no other comments or suggestions. Everything's been presented very well for me. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll just jump into it then, and people think of questions while we're talking that we can address those. So the next scheduled meeting would be December 7th. The project team is thinking that we will want to push that meeting back 1 week, and the reason for that is just as we do, we want to make sure that the draft report kind of reflects the feedback that we'll receive in November from the community on the options that were being shown. And so if you kind of take the time that we need to turn that around, we basically get into kind of that early-ish mid-December timeframe for when we'd want to release the report. And so if we push the committee back basically a week, then we can basically guarantee better that we'll have all the materials ready for the committee to dive into basically what Sam was saying, like having that evaluation criteria ready to share, kind of having the draft report ready to be out to the community. So if folks are kind of okay with potentially a switch shifting a week, we still for the next committee meeting that is what we'll aim for as we move forward. And we really hope that we see a lot of you at the in-person workshops or office hours over the next kind of week and a half, 2 weeks, starting today over lunch. You know, we wanted both kind of a daytime. It was a suggestion for folks to have a daytime meeting. You know, that we had noticed from previous events that, you know, kind of taking a break at lunchtime and people, when people work maybe evenings or things like that, having those kind of options. So we have that, an evening next week, another virtual, and as well as office hours that go through the whole day for people to stop in on. So we would love for you to have some moments to poke around at the plans, generate some thoughts, and come and talk to us more. And with that, that's what we got. Chairs, I'll let you lead any additional discussion. Otherwise, we can move to adjourn.
Any comments, questions, suggestions? You'll find the upcoming meetings on the website. There's several in-person workshops and meetings that you can use that to get to. So I look forward to seeing you there. I'll be at a few of them. With
Wonderful.
that,
Yeah.
I make a motion to adjourn, people.
Second. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, everyone. You have a great week, you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.